music. You're an expert certainly in Springsteen, but you're really an expert when it comes to the Packers. What an interesting week we've had. And the kicking situation, I don't want to tell Rich Bisaccia how to address certain topics, but what's not to like was not probably the perfect phrase for Brandon McManus when he said it the other day. He was talking about football. But what do you think of the kicking carousel spinning now to the point that they have Brandon McManus, who's kicked in a Super Bowl, who's been in the league for a decade? Is this solving the problem?
Well, I mean, even Rich Bisaccia said yesterday that this is sort of a unique situation for him. He mentioned, I think it was a year that he had gone through like 3 long snappers with one of his stops. That was maybe Dallas. I can't remember which one he said, but yeah, I mean, this is the thing that the Packers had successfully avoided and had worked purposefully to avoid a kicking carousel. And it's why they didn't release Mason Crosby after the 2012 season where he struggled, or 13, because they didn't want to get on this roller coaster of a ride. And I will say, though, that probably the best way to solve it is to do it with someone who's proven and has been, under the fire in the arena as much as McManus has. And look, I mean, last year he was 30 of 37. That's right around the acceptable average. It's not unbelievable. That over 80%. Remember, Jace used to be like, that was really good if you were a kicker. Now, if you're 80%, you're like 25th in the league. He did make all 35 of his extra points last year in Jacksonville. I mean, we know that was a problem with Carlson last year. That was one of the things that actually wasn't a problem with Narvison. But I think given the situation and who was available, it's the best possible solution, forgetting for a minute the off-field stuff. That's a whole separate topic. But from a football standpoint, this was probably their best option. Whether it works out or not, we'll see.
Rob, how would you, because when we signed Rich Bisaccia, it was exalted. Oh, my God, we finally got this figured out. How would you grade him in his tenure so far with the Packers?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tausch, and I think we talked about this once before. I think there's 2 distinctly different elements to special teams. There's the 10 guys that cover and block and do all that stuff, and then there's the kicker. And they're so different that I don't, and I've maintained this for a long, long time, that just because you're a good special teams coach in terms of devising schemes, blocking schemes, return schemes, coverage, doesn't mean you know anything about kicking a football. And I don't think, I think maybe when we're judging Rich Bisaccia, we're judging him based on the kickers that Brian Gutekunst has given him. I think from a scheme standpoint, it seems like he's got good stuff. He's got a good returners, I guess. There was a stretch where they had a bunch of penalties on special teams, and that seems like it's been a problem here that's recurred year after year. But I would say it's a B type of grade if I were to give his tenure an overall grade. I mean, it's not. It hasn't been. They haven't been the most unbelievable special teams unit in the league, but I do think there was marked improvement over what they had the previous few coordinators.
I have no idea. You buy into the morning news guy, right? His rankings, you appreciate that. I don't think they've gotten that much better. As a matter of fact, the kicking game's gotten worse. He had a punter that he didn't like, and now he finally got Daniel Whelan, but the kicking is a hot mess. He brought in Anders. You can say it's Goody's fault, and that's fair, but he didn't bring in Anders because they brought him in because old boy wanted him.
No, that's a great point. You're 100% right. He put his, he vouched for Carlson, put his neck on the line.
Stamped him.
You're 100% right there, Tausch. So, but again, it goes.
I got to get in I need to get in Rob Demovsky's professor classes. You're giving out a B for that. I think I'm getting a lot of A's in the Rob Demovsky University.
There's I don't know if it still exists, but there used to be a website called Rate My Professor. And I remember looking at it one time because my wife was a college professor at one point, and I was scrolling through someone else's profile, and it was another teacher where she taught. It was like, take this guy; it's an easy A. So I guess that would be the reputation.
Talking with Rob Demovsky of ESPN.com, I would prefer that he wouldn't say over the air, "You're 100% right, Tausch," because that becomes a clip then, and we don't want that circulating too often. But it does happen a lot. All right, Rob, let's talk a little bit about this matchup. Tausch got after me early in the week because I said that the Cardinals stink. And while they somehow found a way to beat the 49ers the previous week without their kicker, there was a missed kick in that game, I couldn't believe how bad they were. And I know the Packers had something to do with that on last Sunday, but now we have a true measuring stick game. You had a great question about Matt LaFleur's history with D'Amico Ryans. How do you view this game in terms of measuring sticks for whether the Green Bay Packers are good, very good, or a Super Bowl contender based on what happens on Sunday?
Yeah, I view it a lot like the Vikings game. And I think, not to get back to the kicking thing, but they win the Vikings game if Braden Arvison, makes those 2 field goals that he misses. I realize things could have happened differently after those kicks. But I think it's another one of those games that, that's going to tell us, whether they can hang with some of the better teams in the league. I mean, if they lose it, is it a total disaster? No. It's how they play more than the result. I will say, their 4 wins have been, Jason, against teams like you mentioned, Arizona, Tennessee, Indianapolis, and Los Angeles. And every one of those teams was definitely deficient and lacking. However, I do think you have to give the Packers credit for winning those games under the circumstances with which they did. And obviously that was Malik Willis with 2 games against the 2 AFC South teams. And then, the LA game was and really last week both had Romeo Doubs hanging over their head. So I do think you have to give them credit for, how they handled those games. You can't control, who you play and when you play them. So they did take care of business under some, maybe less than ideal circumstances. But, there's going to be some games here, this week, obviously, and looking ahead a couple weeks to Detroit, or as Rich Bisaccia even called, he used the Mike McCarthy and referred to him as Detroit. So maybe that's a generational thing, I thought it was a Pittsburgh thing. Maybe it's a generational thing. But no, I think we're going to find out a lot more about this football team between now and, say the couple weeks after the bye, like the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Rob, the other thing that I thought was interesting, and I don't know if you're writing this for a little bit later, but you and I both took a real interest in the ball meetings concept that they have, and I loved Jeff Hafley. I wasn't trying to say that the title that he came up with for those meetings was lame, but he did offer me the opportunity to come up with something more creative for him. But
and you choked.
You dug into
you choked, by the way. You came up with nothing.
I did.
What did he come up with? Did he not have anything, Rob?
I just continued with my question. I did not come up with
You know what, Jason? We've been doing this show. We've been doing the show 9 years. You want to complain and bicker about a problem? Have a solution to it. What are you doing? And you knowingly asked that question, and I love the fact I like Hafley more now. He put it back on you, and Rob, he gagged? He didn't have anything?
Hey, in fairness, in fairness, yesterday, Bisaccia also thought he had me when I brought up McManus's accuracy from 50 yards out, and he came back with, well, did you look up what he is from 50 in? And I said, as a matter of fact, yes, and I had that stat. So I was 1 for 2 yesterday. Let's get to the question I wanted to ask, though. Rob, they are taking the ball away at a rate not seen around here since before you were covering the team. The year before you got here in 97. In 96, they had 25 takeaways in the first 6 games.
Right.
It's not just the meetings, but it is a mentality. What is your takeaway from all the takeaways?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of the Super Bowl run in 2010. I mean, everybody, wants to talk about Aaron Rodgers, and he was fantastic in several of those games. But, in every one of those playoff games, there was at least one key takeaway, right? Tramon Williams in Philadelphia was did Tremont get one in Atlanta, or was it Sam Shields?
Yeah,
There was a big
Tremont had the touchdown right
Atlanta.
before half on the interception return. Yep.
Yeah. Chicago, 𝙒𝙄𝙇𝘿𝘀 𝘼𝙉𝘿, obviously a big one, and then the Super Bowl. Everybody remembers the Nick Collins. Like, to me, it sort of reminds me of that. And I know I've said this before, that defenses that rely on takeaways, it's a dangerous living, because when you get into the playoffs, good teams don't turn the ball over. But obviously, in that Super Bowl run, they were playing good playoff teams, and they did. So maybe it is sustainable. I've been, kind of collecting anecdotes on this whole ball meeting thing, starting with when Malik Willis took over from an offensive side of the ball, and I'm thinking I'm sure you're writing it this week, and I'll look forward to reading it if I can get past the.
I wrote it today, but you don't pay to get behind the paywall, so I'll email you a copy.
I haven't tried to back my way into the State Journal paywall yet today, so I did learn.
Can we share password? Rob, I can send you the password. I think we could share, right? This isn't
it's
like
Netflix. $1 for
is it?
6 months right now.
Yeah.
You guys suck.
I have a great hack for that, but that's for a dark web show. But anyway, I actually think it's really interesting, and if they get to the Super Bowl, I think that's going to be a real topic, down, for playoff time. I will promote something that I'm writing that's going to run tomorrow, and that's all the incredible connections between Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, the Texan staff, and Green Bay. Bobby Slowick told a great story in Houston yesterday. I don't know if you guys talked about it. His dad was the defensive coordinator in 2024, was DB coach 2020 to 2023. And Bobby was talking about how passionate the fans were in Green Bay. And for the most part, it's great, except one game they were down big early, and fans were just ripping the team and ripping the coaches. And he said he was an eighth grader, so it was probably 2020. He was an eighth grader, and he couldn't take it anymore. And he got up and left the stadium and walked 1.5 miles home. His home on the west side of Green Bay. He went to Southwest High School. I thought that was hilarious.
Tausch, you were on those teams, right? So he was they fired Donatel after 4th and 26. That was the 2003 season. Yep. And then Slowick became the DC in 2004, but it was only 1 year for him too, right? He had been the DB coach
Bates, I think
that.
Jim Bates came in.
Yep.
Yeah, Slowick's year, they were 10-6, but lost to the Vikings at home in the playoffs, 31-17.
Yeah, we got mooned. That was Moongate.
About that game. I don't remember. That was the Moon game. Okay.
It was Moongate.
But I actually exchanged some text messages with Bob Slowick Sr. this week, and believe it or not, he's still coaching.
Really? I believe it. Coaches got to coach now. Coaches got to coach. They can't stop.
70 years old. He's coaching. We couldn't talk on the phone because he was busy preparing for his big game with Calgary in the CFL. I think it's tonight. We just exchanged a few text messages. He gave me a couple quotes about Bobby and being in Green Bay that I think it'll be a fun little story for people.
Nice.
Who will read that hopefully tomorrow on ESPN.com.
All right, last one for me, Rob. Evan Williams. I think you guys missed the boat when it comes to stories this week, because that Evan Williams punch out, and maybe this is Jason, I didn't read your article yet, but that punch out was such an epitome of what this coaches and the teaching and what they're doing is, and maybe that's ball meetings that Jason couldn't rename, but he's got to play more, right? We're going to see these young guys, and we're going to see Cooper. What do you get from when you were talking to these guys? How do you see this kind of shake itself out?
I'm taking credit for Evan Williams, Tausch, and here's why. I say this tongue in cheek. He didn't.
Heard he's like Micah Hyde,
snap.
Is what I've been heard.
He didn't play a single snap in the Eagles game on defense. And that the next time we talked to Jeff Hafley, I was like, "Dude, Evan Williams, what's the deal,
dude?
I know,
dude, get him out there, dude."
Yeah, I did not say. I said, "Does he need to play?" And he said, "Yes." He said basically said it was a mistake, or he feels bad about it. And ever since then, Evan Williams has played a role. The one thing I like, Tausch, and I know this isn't maybe traditionally the way that coaches do it. I like the fact that they have these different packages, and it's not just when you go from base to nickel, you take one guy off and you put one guy in. There's different, like Eric Stokes plays in certain packages, doesn't play in the base, or whatever the case may be. I like the fact that Hafley's doing this, and you can do it when you've got enough guys, that can play. And right now they're healthy in that area, and it's only going to help them if they do end up with injuries, because they won't be throwing a guy in there who really hasn't played or has played a very small role. Evan Williams is the key to all that because he gives them so much flexibility. Javon Bullard, the same, being able to play deep safety or up near the ball. And I know Javon Bullard hasn't gotten the headlines maybe because he hasn't, made the splash plays, but I think he's just as much a part of this. His versatility is huge too.
All right, Rob, we know you got –
Rob, thank you so much for getting Evan Williams out there. I don't think you're getting enough credit.
I don't either. I do what I can, Tausch. I'm just here to help.
That's all you can do. That's why you're the go to the beat writers. That's why ain't that right, Jason?
Oh, I'm back on top now.
Huh? Okay. Yeah.
Before 11-1, Calgary Stampeders at the Hamilton Tiger Cats tonight.
It's a big one. That's a big one.
6 o'clock kickoff. Hamilton, 4.5-point favorite.
Thanks, according to ESPN.
Wow.
All right, Rob, we know you got some other stuff going on today. We appreciate you making time for us. And how lucky, who's got it better than me to have two friends like the two of you in my life, with as Nemo might say, with friends like you, who needs anemones? All right, boys. Rob, we appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you later.
All right, we'll be seeing you.
That is Rob Demovsky. He, believe it or not, he is as good as it gets on our beat. There is nobody better, and we're lucky to have him as part of our show each week. Tausch, we're also lucky to have a great partnership with American Family Insurance.
We do. And, Jason, I'm going to put you in a call to action, not only to go to amfam.com/Packers to get this great stuff, but also put out on Twitter and all the social medias, help you do your job. Ball meetings. What names can we come up that are better? Please. Packer fans looking for the ultimate game day experience? Well, American Family Insurance, they have you covered. Picture this. Hit your very own VIP tailgate and then cheer on the Pack from jaw-dropping seats. Enter the Dream Weekend Sweepstakes to win amazing game tickets, private tailgate, Jordan Love merch, and much, much more. Don't miss out. Hit amfam.com/Packers to enter. Time is running out. You have until 11:59 Central Time, so that's 10:59 Mountain Time on October 21st to get this done, to get down there for that great weekend game.